So this time around, I want to show you how the SX350 and DNA40 regulate temperature on the on their output. What they do electrically to achieve that temperature regulation, and they both do it differently, and both methods are a little different than what we're used to seeing on most DC-DC converters. SX350 in particular uses an interesting method that I'm not a huge fan of, I'll tell you. And let me show you what I mean by that. It puts out a 50 hertz pulse at whatever voltage it displays right here. So when it starts getting into temperature regulation, it starts dropping pulses. So hotter it gets, it says, oh, let me drop some pulses, and this is what is known as variable off-time regulation. The pulse width stays the same, though it's not pulse width modulation. The amount of time it spends off is what changes. And as we keep going, if I can dry this coil out or get close to drying it out, it'll start dropping more and more pulses. And you can almost hear the stutter as it goes through. And the stutter is actually noticeable when you take a draw. You can tell that there are airier moments that are more airy than others as you take these draws. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going and keep going until I can really get this thing dried out. There we go. Lots of pulses missing there, and you can hear it pulse ever so often and drop out. Now, why am I not a fan of this? The fact that it's a 50 hertz. First of all, that's noticeable. That's you're getting into that rattlesnake sound, that rattlesnake territory, which is some people notice it and don't like it, and there's no real benefit to it except that you don't have to have any filtering or anything like that. But I don't understand why they did it that way, and I'm sure someone smarter than me can explain it. But to do it that way when in watt mode you have a relatively clean, flat signal, why you would go to that pulse, the variable off time, I don't see why you do it except to be lazy, and that it is an inconsistent output, which is noticeable by the user. So that's quantifying the feedback if someone gave it, oh, this doesn't give me a consistent vape. Well, that's why. So I think that's a really poor execution of temperature control, and it's to the point where that I counted that, and you can yell at me all you want, but I counted that as a category in testing these boards. I said versus the DNA, which gives us a really nice flat signal, albeit a negative signal, which is fine. We can do that. It can be unusual without being just straight up wrong. I swear, firing these really gets these things heated up. Okay, I have lots of paper towels laying around. So same coil up, or new coil up, same coil down with the same coil, and we're going. We're with that negative going signal. and the screen will flash temperature protected, and it'll change that output. And we get a few waves here and there, and because that could very well be the fact that I have my charger hooked up and my oscilloscope hooked up at the same time. But nonetheless, we have a relatively flat, clean DC signal, and we see that the wattage goes down significantly, and that also goes along with our temperature or our voltage, which is trying to resist that change in temperature. And as we keep going, our wattage drops and drops, along with our voltage. So, and that goes into another little difference between these two boards. Is the DNA40 will show you what wattage it is currently firing at, and it updates fairly quickly, as you saw. And that's valid. The SX350 shows you what joules it's firing at, and that is a static value, which is also valid. However, going back to what I said before, the joule display to me is just less useful. It doesn't tell the user anything important. Showing the wattage and changing that wattage value to me is a more useful, more intuitive feedback, piece of information. So, once again, that particular instance doesn't come into play, but the fact that the DNA gives a clean, flat signal versus the SX giving a variable off-time pulse setup, I have to give DNA40 a point for that. I have to. That's about as subjective as it gets, though. But to me, that if you say that it's a wash because that's a matter of opinion, okay, maybe. But if you say that somehow the SX method is superior, you're going to have to convince me, and you're going to have to come correct. So do it, though. If you want to write in the comment and sell me on it, fucking sell me on it, man. Try your best. I'd like to be convinced. So do it up. So point definitely for the DNA40 there.